And so today's topic is all about fear, fear, fear. Do not let fear take your life. And I have a very, very strong testimony about how fear almost took my life, and I'll share that with you momentarily. But before I get into that testimony, I just want to talk about some things related to fear. A lot of times people operate in the spirit of fear because they don't recognize their greatness. They don't know what it is that they have on their lives. They don't recognize their value and their worth, and so they tend to operate in the fear of the unknown. They operate in confusion. They operate in fear of failure. Some people operate in fear of success. You're afraid of what people think about you. You're afraid to speak up because you're afraid of rejection. You're battling with a rejection spirit. There's maybe generational curses on your life. People from your parents may have issues with fear. Your siblings may have issues with fear. You may have. Thank you for joining me on Periscope. I appreciate the hearts. Thank you. Your parents may have issues. Your siblings may have issues. You may have grown up in a household where all you saw was people being bound by fear. And so I just want to motivate you on today that you can let that go. You don't have to be bound by fear anymore. So another thing is the lies that you have heard and have internalized as children. I can think of lies that I heard as a child that people told me that I believed until an adult. As a grown woman, I believed about myself because they had self-hate issues, and so they put that on me, and I believed that, and I believed it. And so it takes a lot of self-work. It takes a lot of self-love, self-awareness, and recognition to know when and what to accept in your life. Even the words that you speak over your life, you have words that you're speaking over your life right now. They may be words of positive affirmations, or they may be words of destruction, self-destruction. So think about that energy that you're putting back on yourself that's causing the fear that is ultimately taking your life. So let me share my testimony with you as to how fear almost took my life. Back in where do I begin? I'll say 2015. Actually, it was a little before that, but 2015, I was living in the United Arab Emirates. I was in Al Ain. I was about an hour from Dubai. I lived there for 2 years, and I was teaching. I am a elementary education teacher. I've been teaching now for almost 9 years, and I love my job. So I wanted to move abroad. I had always had a dream of living in another country, and also getting paid to do what I love to do. I'm exploring different parts of the world, and that's just was my thing. So I got to a point in where my contract was over, and I had to make a decision because I was not getting a job anywhere else. And so I ended up, I didn't want to go back to the U.S. Honestly, I was not ready to go back to the United States. So the issue was my son, now he's 11, but at the time he was 8. I had, at the time, an 8-year-old son who was ready to go back to the U.S. His father and I are not together. And I was at this point in my life, like, what do I do? Do I still move on with my dream of still trying to live abroad, looking for another country to live in, or do I just go back home to, be with my son? So I dealt with so much fear and anxiety around that because I did not want to fail my son. But at the same time, I knew that what was in my heart and what I was called to do at that particular time of my life. So the biggest decision of my life, honestly, was to leave my son in the United States while I spent another year abroad in Uganda. So I actually moved to a different country. I left the UAE. I moved to Uganda, and I lived away from my son for an entire year. Mind you, I am a single parent, and that is my only child. So you can just imagine the fear and the anxiety, the depression that I faced in that act of faith alone. But it was probably the biggest fear of leaving him, fear of what would happen to him if I didn't bring him, fear if I stayed and missed out on the opportunity. So there was so much around that. But one thing I will say is this, that even though it was a hard decision to make to leave him, I learned a lot in the lesson, and he actually ended up coming with me to Uganda a year later. Even with that job, I ended up having to leave early, break my contract because my son got sick. It's a long story. You have to check out my YouTube channel. I kind of go down all of the things that I dealt with, all the drama and everything situated around my son and his asthma. He had severe asthma in Uganda, and we literally had to leave. Was I scared? Of course I was scared, because I was breaking a contract. I was scared for my son's health and his life, and it was so many things centered around that. So my point of telling you all these different situations is that you will have situations in your life that is going to cause you to get anxious, and you'll be forced to make some type of decision, but you can't operate in fear. You have to operate in some level of trust in God that he is going to see you through, and that whatever decision that you make, even if it may have not been the best decision for that moment, everything is going to work out to the good, okay? And everything is a teaching moment. So maybe you made one decision to go this way and not the other way, but everything is a teaching moment, and everything will propel you to the next level and to grow you, okay? And strengthen you for that next season in your life. You know, I can think back before I even went to the UAE, I was fearful of going to the UAE, and it almost literally, my life, when I say it took my life, almost took my life, is that I could have not gone down the road of experiencing life in another country, experiencing life from a different standpoint, had I had the fear not to go at all. I listened to the lies that people told me that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I listened to the lies of what people told me about living in another country. I listened to the lies of people who told me that it was a waste of my time. Why would I even go somewhere else to teach? But had I listened to those lies, had I really fed into my fear, I wouldn't be in the position that I am today. And when I moved and jumped overseas, there's so many doors of opportunity that opened for me. There's so much self-awareness that I found out, that learned about myself, and businesses came out of my step of faith. It was a lot, and I'm thankful. So step out, do something that makes you so uncomfortable. That was the most uncomfortable time of my life. I was getting out of a toxic relationship, actually, and I was at a point of desperation. I needed to get away, honestly, and I didn't realize my getaway was going to take me to another place, a country, but that was the extreme that I had to go through, because this toxic relationship literally was going to take my life. It was starting to get abusive, verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, and I needed to get into a different place in my life. And sometimes you need to step out in the wilderness in order to find yourself again. Sometimes you need to isolate yourself and let a lot of people go, break off old habits, break off old mindsets, break off old people and attachments, move from one territory to the next in order. Sometimes it takes those drastic measures to really, really find yourself. Step out on faith, yes, in fear, but it is the biggest reward that I can tell you that you'll receive, okay? If you follow me on any of my social media channels, you'll see why. And I'm also on my blog at KristenJWoodruff.com. Make sure you check that out. Thank you again for those hearts. I really do appreciate you. So number 1, do something every day that scares you. Do something, whether it's speaking in front of a group of people, whether it's sending your first blog post, whether it is taking a new way home, whether it is starting a new business, whether it's getting on Periscope Live, whatever it is that scares you, that you're a little anxious about, I say do that, okay? Because that's the thing that's going to push you to the next level. That's the thing that's going to get you strengthened for that next level in your life, okay? Number 2, I would honestly say, is face the root of the problem. Where do you feel that this problem is coming from? You know, is it from your childhood, this feeling of fear and anxiety? Is it coming from an old toxic relationship when somebody kept you bound? And that, is it coming from self-hate, the lies that you tell yourself? Is it coming from your parents, some rejection issues, some abandonment issues? Where is your fear coming from? Face your fear. Where is the root of the cause of that problem? Okay. My number 3, of course, is always to step out on faith. Do something that you know you couldn't do alone. You have to do in the presence of God and through prayer and possibly fasting. But step out on faith and know that everything is going to be all to the good, okay? And the last but not least, and probably the most important, is watch the words that you speak over your life. Watch the words you speak. And I have a couple of lives that I had repeated that on multiple occasions, because I'm a firm believer that you manifest the words that come out of your mouth. And I'm huge on affirmations, and I know that in affirmations there is some truth. And so if whatever comes out of your mouth is in your heart, you know. So watch those words. Start speaking what back into your life, what it is that you expect for your life. So if you're looking for more confidence in yourself, more boldness, more your self-esteem, more financial blessings, healing, whatever it is that you're looking for, you ask and it shall be given to you. Start to receive it. Start to acknowledge it as being already there. All right. I really do appreciate your time. Before I go, make sure to follow me because I have a new book coming out. My book will be released very, very soon. And in my book, I talk about my battle with toxic relationships and how I overcame those toxic relationships and I started to walk in my purpose. And I share my experiences of living overseas and how I was able to step out into the wilderness, find myself, and grow in my passion in order to get myself into a different place in my life. And I share that story because in hopes of inspiring the next woman, because a lot of single moms especially feel that we are confined to a certain lifestyle based on our circumstances, because you have kids, because you're not married, because you feel convicted for where you are in your life, that God can't use you and bless you. But that's totally far from the truth. And that's part of the words that you speak over your life. So you can do it. I'm a firm believer. I was pregnant. After I had my son, when he was 3 months old, I went back and got my master's. I went through school, working a full-time job, and I came out with a 3.9 GPA. I could have came out with a 4.0, but I had a hater as my counselor. But my point is to tell you, you can do anything you put your mind to. I took me and my son and I relocated and became an expat and lived overseas for 3.5 years. You can do anything you put your mind to. Do not allow society or people to put lies in your head that because of who you are, the color of your skin, your social and economic status, your marital status, how many kids that you have, to stop you from your shine. Because your shine is your shine. It's given to you for a purpose. Nobody else can steal your shine, okay? But if you're not using that shine appropriately and you're letting all these people walk over you, your light will dim. You can't let people dim your light. All right? So, thank you so much for watching.